Okay, so the first one that we're going to do is cervical flexion, and then we're going to do cervical extension. And they use the same landmarks. So for both of these, my fulcrum is going to be right at the external auditory meatus, and I'm going to put my fulcrum right there. My proximal arm is going to be perpendicular to the ground. So I'm going to find something in the background to kind of line it up with so it's straight up and down. And then this distal arm is going to go right through the base of his nose, right through the nostrils right here. So I'm going to have him do, first we'll do flexion. And I want to make sure when he does this that it's pure cervical flexion as much as possible. I don't want his shoulders rolling forward. I want it pure cervical. And the same thing when he goes back. I don't want him leaning into it. I want him to go straight back into the air. So the first one I'm going to do is flexion. So I'm going to go right through the ear hole. I'm going to go straight up and down. And then I'm going to go right through the nares. And then I'm going to have him bend forward. And I'm going to come down through the nostrils. And straight up and down and right through the ear hole. And we have got zero, 50 degrees. So my 0 was right here, and I'm going to here. So he's got 50 degrees. So now we're going to do the same thing, except he's going to do extension. So go ahead and go back into extension. And again, my 0 is going to be at 90. I'm going to come up and go right through those nares. Right there. And on that one, he's got 45 degrees. So both of those were pretty good. Normal for flexion is 40 degrees, and normal for extension is 50 degrees.
And roll it.
Okay, so the next one we're going to do is cervical lateral flexion. So for this one, my fulcrum is going to be over C7. So I'm going to actually come down and palpate C7. That's going to be my fulcrum. And my proximal arm is going to go straight down right along the spinous processes. So I want to aim basically straight at the ground. Now, this one is a little bit difficult, but when he brings his ear down to his shoulder, I'm going to try and go for the external occipital protuberance as opposed to trying to stay just in the middle of his head. I want to go right there, that external occipital protuberance. So I'm going to be palpating that. So I'm going to go right on C7. And I'm going to have you bring your ear down towards this shoulder, straight to the side. Perfect. And I'm going to come in here. Normal for this one is about 22 degrees. Make sure I'm going right down. Take a peek. Good. And he's doing really well. He's got 34 degrees. And I can measure that to the right, and then I can measure it to the left. Again, normal is 22.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, now we're going to do cervical rotation. Normal on this one is about 70 to 90 degrees of rotation right and left. This one's a little bit weird. We're going to go over the center of the head, but for our fulcrum. But what I'm going to do is this proximal arm, I'm going to put right through between his acromion processes. So when I look down, I'm going to feel that acromion process, and I want to go directly through that and have it come directly through on this side. I don't want him to go ahead and slump forward. So I don't want forward shoulders. I want him to be in a good posture with his shoulders back like that. My distal arm is going to go right through the nose. Your book talks about how you can put a tongue depressor in their mouth and gives you a little something better to aim at, but we're just going to use the tip of his nose. So again, I'm just going to come up over the top, I'm going to palpate those acromion processes and make sure I'm dead through those. And then I'm going to come straight through the tip of his nose. I'm going to have you turn your head to the right. So remember, I started there. That's 0. Normal is 70 to 90. So I'm going right through there. And he is getting 72 degrees, which is just about right. He's within normal limits. And then to do the other side again, I'll just flip it this way and have him turn his head to the left. And we'll go that way. So that's it.
Hey class. Okay, so now we're going to use the inclinometers, which you may or may not run into on clinicals. Not everybody does it this way, but we're going to teach them to you anyway. It's not something you'll be tested on in your practicals, but it's good information, and the concept on how we're measuring flexion is important for you to know. I will show you that on the inclinometer, you can see this top part. So as it moves, the blue liquid goes up or down. Once you place it on the patient, you want to zero it out. It's called the meniscus, this little blue spot. So the meniscus you want zeroed out so that when they do flex forward, you're just counting the numbers. The kind of crazy part where your math skills come in is we use 2 of them at the same time. And so one's up on the top of the T-spine at T1, the bottom one's at S2, and as your patient bends forward, you'll come up with 2 separate numbers. That'll be your job as the students. I'll tell you what numbers I'm reading. You guys need to subtract those 2 numbers, and then that gives us the thoracolumbar flexion number. Okay, so the first one is at C7. We just zoom in. You find C7, or sorry, it's at T1. You find C7 though, where the spinous process is poking out, and it's the vertebrae, the spinous process right underneath it is T1. So I will place the inclinometer there. I will zero it out, and then I'm just holding that in place. The bottom number, or the bottom one, is at S2. You reach in, you find the SI bony landmarks, kind of where those dimple spots are. You come straight across to the middle. I will zero that one out. And then your patient leans forward to touch their toes. And when they're there, the top number I have 30. Sorry, the bottom number, S2, I have 30. The top number, we are at 86. And go ahead and come back out. So you'll subtract 86 from 30, and you get your flexion number. Extension is identical, the same spots. C7, you find T1, zero it out. S2, sorry, thank you. There's S2, we come over and zero it out. And now your patient extends backwards as far as they can. These numbers will,
Ooh.
uh-oh, somebody's been doing broga. Let's see. I have 80 for the top number. Sorry, bottom number. I have 20. So, do the math. 80 minus 20, and you get your number for extension.
So normal for thoracolumbar flexion is 60 degrees, and normal for thoracolumbar extension is 25 degrees.
This guy killed it.
Here we go.
Okay, so now we're doing side flexion. Our landmarks are the exact same spot. So you're at T1 on the top inclinometer and S2 at the bottom. I have the bottom one zeroed out. I'll let James zero out the top. And then we have the patient side bend by running their left hand down the outside of their left leg. They just go as far as they can. The bottom number, I have 22.
And the top number is 45.
So norms on this are 25. You're good. You can come back up. The normal for side bending or lateral flexion is 25. You do the math the same way. You just subtract the two numbers and you come up with your answer. So James and I are going to let you students do all the math computations. The first two were pretty cakey. They were, nice square numbers, but there you go.
All right. And
okay, so now we're doing the manual muscle testing of the neck and back. We're going to start with neck extension. So our poor client here has been resting in this position for about 5 minutes, waiting for James to figure out how to hit the record button. I'm just kidding. Okay, so with this one, you're going to put a palm just under their forehead. It's just there for safety measures, not a big deal. You can relax for a minute. Then you're going to have your patient go straight back. They're not extending upwards like to look forward, but just lifting their head straight back. I'm going to put two fingers is all on the back of their head and push down. And if they can hold it for the 5 count, they score a 5. If they start to drift, then it starts to melt, they get a 4. If they can only lift the head with no resistance, they get a 3. Okay, we're good with that. Go ahead and flip over onto your back.
While we're moving, for cervical extension, we're looking at longissimus cervicus, semispinalis cervicus, iliocostalis cervicus, splenius cervicus, the upper traps, and spinalis cervicus.
Did you feel all those working?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so for this one, we're testing, it's almost the identical test. My resistance will be on their forehead. Again, it's 2 fingers. You're having them move straight up like that, not bending, not tucking the chin, but just like he did. I push down, resistance, go for a 5 count, and he is good. The other tests are just right. You're good. Now we're going to do trunk extension. So I'm doing this all wrong, but I'm doing the order of the lab. So my patient has agreed to be a pancake and just keep flipping. For trunk extension, you have them come all the way out on the table so that their belly button is hanging off. Okay. Then you have them cross the back of their head and you have them fully extend. Sorry, I'm going to run around and give resistance to his legs just to support him. So if your patient now can come up in a full extension and lock it out, they get a 5. If they start to melt, they get a 4. If they can't have their hands there, but they bring their arms down to their sides, and they can just do the motion, they score a 3. Okay, you're good with that one. Scooch back. And now we're going to do trunk flexion. The patient is laying on their back. And the most important landmark for these are the shoulder blades. So he is going to do a sit-up, kind of a crunch more. The arm placement is the most important. If your patient can put their arms behind their head, do a crunch, and both scapula are lifted off the back of the mat, they can score a 5. If they have to cross their arms across their chest, then it's a 4. If their arms are to the side and they can do the same motion, clearing the table, they get a 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what you got. And then we're reaching up. Here's the bases of both scapula, the inferior angle, which he clears both, and so he's good. Now we're going to test rotation. So very similar test. For this one, he's going to put his arms behind his head, and instead of going straight up, we're testing the obliques. So if he is rotating to his left and lifting the scapula off the table, then he scores a 5 with his hands behind his head. We're testing the left internal obliques, the direction you're rotating towards. The external obliques are the opposite on the right. So right externals, left internals if he's rotating to the left. That's a 5 again if his hands are across his chest. and he does the same motion, clears the table, then he gets a 4 if he has to have his arms to his side, and does the same test. As long as he clears the table, he gets a 3. I think we're good.
All right.